Derrick Henry is set to undergo surgery on his right foot after suffering a Jones fracture in this week's last game. Welcome back, everybody. I'm Dr. Brian Sutterer, and this is your #1 source for learning about the unique medical side of the world of sports. This was certainly an unusual sequence of events because we all saw Henry walking a little bit gingerly on that right ankle this past weekend, but was put back in the game, didn't miss any other time until this morning we found out that he had actually fractured a bone in his foot and is gonna have surgery. Henry only actually played a few snaps before coming off and having that foot looked at. This was their first handoff on their first drive, really. Nothing here that looked overly traumatic or too bothersome for him. The next play was when Tannehill threw the interception, and so then he came out for the Titans' second drive. The next play of their subsequent drive, we again saw this toss to Henry, and really nothing that looked overly out of the ordinary here on this play. On second down here, Henry just kind of motioned out to the side and wasn't involved in the play at all. And then he wasn't even on the field for the Titans' third down play. So when exactly did this injury happen, and what is a Jones fracture? Looking at our anatomy tool here, we're basically looking straight down at the top of the right foot. And the bone that I have highlighted here is the 5th metatarsal. As we walk across, this is the 5th, the 4th, the 3rd, the 2nd, and the 1st metatarsal that sit in what we call the midfoot. This little bump at the base of the 5th metatarsal, you can actually feel pretty well in yourself if you just push on the outside of your lower foot. And when we talk about 5th metatarsal fractures, we break them up into 3 different zones. Zone 1, Zone 2, and then Zone 3. Zone 1 are the most benign. These are just avulsion fractures at the tuberosity or the base of this 5th metatarsal. Zone 2 are what we consider a Jones fracture. And Zone 2 is defined in a couple of ways, but primarily it's where there's an articulation or a joint between the 5th metatarsal and the subsequent 4th metatarsal. So that articulation is going to be right here in this area. So any fracture through the base of this 5th metatarsal that extends into that articulation between the 4th and the 5th is what we consider a Jones fracture. The reason these are more concerning is there's poor blood flow kind of right in this area because of how the vessels are distributed. And so there's a higher risk of what we consider non-union, meaning the fracture doesn't heal properly, which can delay the healing. So the next question is, how in the world did this actually happen without a significant traumatic looking play? Avulsion fractures at just the base of this 5th metatarsal are what we think of as occurring whenever somebody has a bad inversion ankle sprain. But a Jones fracture doesn't occur when somebody just inverts their ankle. Typically this occurs when somebody pushes off of a plantar flexed foot in cutting sports like basketball, soccer, or football. This means the ball of the foot is down on the ground, the heel is lifted off, and then you push in one direction and there's this forceful contraction throughout the foot that causes that fracture to occur. So then the question, if we go back and look at these plays, can we identify when this might have happened? The one moment that could be suspect for this occurring is right here in their second possession as Henry comes out and plants. Right here, he pushes off that right foot. His foot is plantar flexed, meaning the heel is lifted up, the ball of the foot is in the ground, and he goes from running out towards the left to then changing directions right there to push uphill. This kind of foot plant position there is not classic for what we'd see with the Jones fracture, and then there was nothing really at the bottom of this pile that would make me think of it occurring then. Now, again, it's very unusual that Henry wasn't severely limping here. He did come out after this next play, and then the next time we saw him was when he was limping around on the sidelines with his foot being looked at. So I imagine it happened sometime during that sequence, and that's really the only moment that I could think of watching back through these replays. As we've seen with the initial reports of around an 8-week absence, it certainly is possible that Henry could come back for the playoffs, but it really depends on how he heals from his surgery, how that fracture heals. I imagine they're going to put a pin in the bone to bring those two edges of the fracture together to optimize healing. But there's always, of course, complications that can arise with surgery, and then he's going to have to go through his rehab process to get back in football playing shape. So that's the end of this video. I hope it was educational to take a look at Jones fractures and what could have happened here with Derrick Henry. Let me know as always any questions or comments down below, and until next time, we'll see you later. Bye.